Hey there, everyone. Thanks for joining us on the UCAN show. I'm Varun with UCAN, and I am thrilled to be joined by Don Grunnagle, fresh off a marathon PR. Don, how are you doing today?
Pretty good. I'm feeling great.
Got that PR glow. So, as a bit of background, Dawn is a Dallas-based elite runner. She's a two-time qualifier for the U.S. Olympic Marathon Trials. Qualified for the Olympic Trials as a middle distance runner as well. So we will chat with Dawn about her diverse range of experiences in the world of running. And Dawn's also a youth running coach. She's got a local group in the Dallas area called SpeedKids, which she leads as well. So Dawn, you kind of got the full gamut of perspectives in running, and really excited to chat with you about a whole bunch of different things today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So, Don, let's talk a little bit about your background in the sport, because I think it's your path to achieve what you have achieved is pretty unique, and it's fascinating. So, tell us a little bit about your entry point into running. When did it start for you, and when did running first become something that you were passionate about?
Yeah, so I grew up with brothers. So I grew up playing basketball mainly, and we played at the church, and that was kind of my first love of sport. And then I guess it was middle school, people started joining track, and I joined track in high school, but I continued to play basketball. And yeah, so I guess all my friends were joining track, so I said, why not? And I actually started off as a sprinter. I ran the 100, the 4 by 200, 200-meter dash, and I was convinced that I was a sprinter, but I ended up being put into a 1 mile and won that. And then I realized I had some good distance speed as well, so that kind of became my event. So that's how I kind of started running.
And for you, it wasn't necessarily a linear path, right? For a lot of people, especially people that are achieving the times and that you are in running, it's kind of something that starts early and then just builds and continues. But your journey was a little bit different. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I did run in college. I ran the 800 and the 1500, 1 mile in college. And then really just after I graduated, I just didn't really love it anymore. So I stopped running completely and started my teaching career. I taught for 10 years for in third and fourth grade. And then I was always just tried to stay fit. I was in the gym and stuff, but and then I would do a few runs here and there, but nothing, not training, maybe running like twice a week. And I had a coach approach me and say, if you let me coach you through a 5K, um, you'll PR. If you don't PR, then you never have to talk to me again. And so that's kind of how I started running again. And I missed just competing. I've always been a competitor. Just having brothers, it's just a natural thing for me to be a competitor. And so I missed that side of myself. And so I started running again and started just with some road races, and then ended up in a half marathon and got pretty close to the trials qualifier in 2016. And someone said, hey, like if you run sub 115, you can make the Olympic trials in the marathon. I was like, oh, that'd be kind of cool to say I did that. And so I went for it and I got it barely. I think I got it by 2 seconds or something. But then I thought, oh my gosh, I have to actually run a marathon, and people eat during this and they take in fuel. And that was such a foreign thing to me. So I guess that's kind of the fast forward version of how I ended up starting doing the marathon.
Now, prior to moving into the marathon, like you mentioned, you synced up with the coach when you were getting back into running and started at that 5K distance. You had some success as a middle distance runner. So what was what do you remember about that time? What was the training like? What did you like about competing at that distance?
Yeah, so I've always loved the track. So, being an 800, 1500-meter runner in college, I kind of drew me back to that. And so I started training for the shorter distances in the 1500. And so, yeah, I think just loving the middle distance. Even in my mind right now, even though I'm training fully for the marathon and doing a lot of miles, way more than I did back then. When I get to that last mile of the marathon, I was like, I'm a miler. Like, I got this. Nobody better be around me with that last mile, because in my mind, I still believe that I'm a miler.
And you kind of get to scratch that track itch, if you will, or that get back to the track background with the kids you coach, right? So you coach a youth track program. Tell us a little bit about the SpeedKids program. What's that all about? And you talked about your background as a teacher. Was coaching and youth coaching kind of natural, kind of like a natural, extension of that?
It was, yeah. So I taught third and fourth grade for 10 years, and people started to, know that I was running and said, like, hey, can you coach my son or my daughter? And so I started doing some stuff on the side with soccer kids and a lot of like form drills. We really specialize in like running drills. So I started teaching that, running form, and a lot of speed agility, just drills and little techniques that kids could use to get faster. And so I did that on the side after school. And when I started competing again and I started getting to go travel a little bit, I was having to get up at 4:30 in the morning to get my training in. And then a lot of the races would be really, really early. Or like I'd have to leave on a Friday or a Monday. And so it just wasn't conducive to me teaching and trying to compete to where I wanted to compete, because I couldn't travel during the school year. And so I decided I was going to take off teaching and just focus on running. And so I did that, and that's when I launched SpeedKids. And so I guess to go back to your question, I'd already been coaching kids, but then I officially made it a group. And it originally started as an all girls group. And the vision behind it was to create the all around female athlete, not just through being a fast runner, but being an all around piece of your community. So we do a lot of service projects through the Dallas area, children's book for the Children's Hospital, for the kids getting dialysis and chemo treatments. We've done like cover up graffiti, painting, letters to the veterans, wounded warriors, the deployed troops. We do at Hope Supply, we wrap the diapers and organize all those for the diapers and kids in need. We've stuffed backpacks and collected school supplies. So we do all various types of projects. And really the number one thing for me creating this group was to show my girls that running is great, and it's great that it's a big piece of you, but make sure that you are more than that. And what other things can you offer? Like, who are you as a whole person? Because that running can be taken away from you in at any minute. Anything can happen and you can't run. So don't make that completely who you are. And so that's really what I wanted the message to be. And so it's just grown from there. And so this past summer, we just launched our elite high school program called Apex. So now that's our high school elite, and then SpeedKids is 8th grade and under, and then we have now a junior elite, which is 4 years old to 7. And those are the little ones, and they are learning just like basic, fun, just making running fun. So yeah, it's been a really fun project for me because it's the best of both worlds. Like I still feel like I'm teaching, but it's my own classroom that I get to develop any lessons that I want to do, and it's outside. So I really feel like it's the best of both worlds.
And we had a chance a couple years ago in Dallas to meet a few of the kids who you brought to a breakfast event that we held with Meb, and really cool to just see the passion they have for running, but just also like you talked about. I mean, the whole well-rounded element of the program. It's really neat to hear about. One of the things that struck me, you were saying kind of how you try to impart to the kids you work with how it's about more than being a runner. And even for you to be involved, in that and giving a lot of your time, it's clearly a huge other dimension to your life, outside of running, which is also a dimension to your life. How do you kind of balance the two? How do the things that you're working on that aren't your running career go hand in hand with what you're doing from a competitive and a training standpoint as you're trying to achieve these really fast times and trying to, compete against the best women's marathoners in the country?
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. I think, first of all, the kids still talk about that day, the ones that got invited to go see Meb, they still talk about that. So we feel so grateful and thankful for that. And Meb's just, he's such an awesome person. So, yeah, but I think me going to Boulder for 6 weeks is a sacrifice that I had to make because I'm away from my kids for 6 weeks. And the timing was good because they were going back to school and I got them all ready for their cross country seasons. But it's very hard for me to be away from them for that long because they count on me, especially the girls that are in high school that are really into their seasons that maybe don't have coaches. Um, some schools they don't even have coaches, or they have coaches that maybe are the football coach too. So they say like, go run around the school 2 times and come back. And these girls are and these boys are in formal training with me through the summer. So, there's a little bit of guilt there because I feel like I'm leaving them, but also I think it's good for them to understand like you have to make sacrifices sometimes to achieve your goals. So for me to be able to go away for 6 weeks out of the heat and to have a focused training block was really important for me to be able to have a good day in Berlin. And I probably could have trained here, but it just would have been a different buildup, and I wouldn't have that focus that I really had there when it was just me getting the job done every day and not having, other things that I have to do because it's just hard for me to shut things down if I have it all there. I take on a lot. I'll take on more and more and more and then I'll just run myself down. So Dave and I decided to just be good, just to get there, eat, sleep, run, repeat. And that's what we did. So,
You just mentioned Dathan, so your coach is Dathan Ritzenhein, who's one of the all-time marathoners for the U.S. on the men's side, a three-time Olympian. What's it like being coached by someone who has that kind of resume and that kind of experience, competing at the highest stage?
yeah, I mean, he definitely pushes me more, sometimes more than I think I can do. I don't even look at my workouts more than a week ahead of time because I'll say, oh my gosh, I can't, what is he thinking? I can't do this. And he really challenged me this build up to hit a lot of weeks at around 100 miles. And, that was a challenge, especially being older. And, I wasn't so sure my body was going to hold up, but it did. And I just trusted that. And, he's, I wouldn't say he's easy on me, but he's very positive all the time. I'm harder on myself. So I'll say, oh, like the workout I was just telling you about with the 2x6. He's like, this is really good. You're at altitude. He took all the positives out of it and it helped me change my mindset. So I think his mental capability and what he's been through with his injuries and his racing career, he's able to like carry that over to his coaching and has helped me, squash doubts or anything that I might have leading into, a big race.
And what you just said, like that whether it's your coach, whether it's family, whether it's people you work with, that positivity in terms of your support system, for really anyone that's training for a marathon, because you were talking about sacrifice. If you're putting in work to achieve a goal, there's going to be sacrifice that you're going to have to go through, and the people around you, are perhaps going to also go through on your behalf. How much does, whether it's from your husband Harry to Dathan, like just having a positive support system around you, how much do you think that matters to you achieving what you've been able to achieve?
Oh, it's huge. I mean, and I would say Harry, he works behind the scenes, making sure everything is so I don't have to stress about it. He's just been such a rock. But, really my SpeedKids and my Apex athletes also, I mean, they inspire me to be better. They inspire me coaching them, and that makes me a better runner and a better athlete. But, it takes a team, and it takes a team that you trust, that is going to be behind you, helping you through the lows and the ups. And, they're going to be there not when you're just running well, but when you have those bad days, like I had at Boston. Like they stick with you. So I would say, yeah, I'm very lucky to have the people around me that I do.
You talked about a bad day that you had in Boston. I believe maybe it was 2016 or 2017. You can correct me what year it was, but I guess from that moment to then still having confidence in yourself and being able to come back and set marathon PRs back to back years. You ran 2:34:56 in Berlin a year ago, 2:33:14 in Berlin this past year, just a few weeks ago, which is a minute 42 PR. How do you what can you say? What can you tell people about what you were able to do when you had a low moment to get to what you just were able to achieve?
Yeah, I think you just have to let it kind of fall off your shoulders. It's like having a bad workout. Every race isn't going to be a PR, and if you focus on having one bad day and you focus on that for weeks and say, "Oh, I'm not going to be able to do this," and that's all you think about, then you're not going to have a good day. You have to learn how to let it fall off your shoulders. And I like to think of it like a tool belt. So you have these great workouts, you have these great races, maybe leading up to a big marathon, and you've got your tool belt, and you put those positive workouts and those good races and those great things that happen, that awesome, the little statement your coach said about how awesome and smooth and strong you look, or whatever that is, those little pieces all come together and you put those on your belt. And by the time you get to the start line, you have that tool belt and you're unstoppable, because anything that comes at you, you have all these tools now, and you just pull them off your belt and you just go to battle. So I guess I think of it like that. And there's no room on my belt for negatives. Like, there's no room for you. So I don't take those with me. I just, I might think about it for a day and then I just forget about it. In fact, when you said something about Boston, I was like, what year was that? And it was just 2018. It was just a year ago.
Oh, wow, wow.
2018. But I did go back to Boston this year. I didn't run as fast as I wanted to, but I finished the race and didn't end up in the emergency room. So that was a plus. But yeah, I ran Boston this year, but it was 2018 when we had the crazy rain, and yeah.
That's right. Yeah, that was a tough day all
But
the way
yeah, it
around.
wasn't on my belt. So I was like, what year was that? Did I do that race? Because I don't remember it.
It feels like so you've had so many wins. It feels like so far in the past. I was like 2016. What was it? um, so you were talking about that idea of like a belt and stacking positive moments and positive thoughts. I mean, is that something like you literally draw from? Say if you're having a tough moment in a race or a bad workout. I mean, are you very literally like going back and thinking about one of those positive moments and that helps give you strength?
Yeah, definitely. I think if you can line up with, that, like you talked earlier about, like the team that you have behind you, like having you guys on my team, having Harry, having my SpeedKids and my youth athletes, having my strength coach and my masseuse, like people that have helped me along the way. It's all of that just makes you so much stronger. So when you do hit one of those rough patches, the marathon's going to give you that. It's just, that's the marathon. And so in Berlin, I hit a couple of those patches, but I knew they weren't going to be around long because I knew I was too strong. My belt was too strong. So you just wait it out, and you just keep plugging away, and don't panic. Like, there was one point in the marathon I missed, or I came up to the bottle station and my bottle wasn't there. Like, someone must have taken it, or they just didn't put it out. But I was like, okay, like, don't panic. It's just one bottle and I'll get the next one. So I was so focused on getting my next fueling station that I'm running and I just run right by my bottle. And I was like, oh no. And I was in this pack of men, probably about 20 men. So it was a great situation to be in because I was just like floating with them. I was in the middle and they were carrying me and I felt great. And I had to stop, go back and turn around, get the bottle, because I knew if I missed two bottles, that wouldn't be good. So
Have you ever done that at a marathon? Actually have to turn around and go grab?
I have knocked my bottle off the table and it rolled under the table at CIM, and I actually had to crawl under the table and get it. So
Yeah. You
I
just
can do
jumped into an
better at the
obstacle. I was gonna say, it's like you created your own obstacle course race in the middle of a
Yeah,
marathon.
I could do better on the bottle grabbing, or I could definitely do more practice with that and maybe run seconds faster with I didn't have to stop in the middle. But that was the moment too. I was like, okay, don't panic. Get your bottle, get your fuel, and then just work yourself back up. And so I worked myself back up into the pack, and it was fine. So
That's
as long
that's
as you take a situation, just don't panic and just keep plugging away. You shouldn't be in the low for very long if you've done the right training.
So while we're on the subject, of your bottles, you talked about earlier as you moved up to the marathon, this whole idea of like, wow, I actually have to eat during this run because it's so long.
Yeah.
So the nutrition has been an evolution for you. Take us kind of back to when you first started training for distance. What were you kind of trying to do in the early days to fuel these long runs, and what was your experience?
So when I first started the marathon, I knew where people were taking gels, the little packets, and I was like, oh, this is, interesting. So I tried one, and I was like, oh my gosh, how are people eating these? And then while you're running, and not just running easy, but you have to take it in when you're running fast. And I just couldn't keep any of these gels in. And my coach at the time was like, go out and buy every gel you can find, every type of brand. And basically, we're going to just test them all on your runs and see which one you can stomach. And it was kind of I would read about it, and people were saying you have to harden your stomach to this. You have to train your gut type of. I was reading stuff like that. It's like, okay, I'm going to be tough. I'm going to train my gut. And it just got worse and worse. And I found one that had, we found out like a lot of the sugar was making it come back up. So I found one that had the least amount of sugar, and I was like, okay, I know I'm going to throw up because I've been throwing up in training. It's just a matter of when. So I went to the Olympic trials in 2016, and I was like, okay, I know I'm going to throw up, but hopefully it's not really early on. And 5K in, I ended up throwing up. So that was a really, really long Olympic trials marathon for me.
Hot day in LA too, so not a good day to be
No,
losing fluids.
it's so defeating too, because you train. I was in the best shape of my life, probably better shape than I am in now. And I just, the feeling is really, it's tough and it's so individual too. And a lot of people can handle the gels, and I just couldn't. So when after the trials, I decided maybe I'm not a marathoner. Maybe with those marathon shoes, and maybe I'll go back to the 5K. I like the shorter stuff. So I let that sink in for a little bit, and then I was like, no, I'm not giving up that easy. And Dathan is a friend of mine, so I called him up. I was like, what am I doing wrong? I mean, he's this accomplished marathoner. Like, how is everybody passing me towards the back end of the race? How are people not throwing up? I don't understand. Like, what am I doing wrong? And he's like, well, if it's making you sick, then don't do it. Like, what a miraculous, like, that's so brainy. I'm definitely gonna, I just didn't think of it. I just thought you had to have the gels. And then he introduced me to UCAN. So what's pretty awesome about Generation UCAN is like it's going to be on the Dallas Marathon course, so people can take it along the way. They don't need the special bottles. But yeah, so once I started taking the UCAN, and I was taking it in training, we practiced it in training, and I was running better, I was running stronger, and I was like, I wasn't getting sick. It's like, this is fun. I enjoyed going on a long run because I wasn't getting sick. And then we ran New York, and I ran my first marathon without getting sick. And that's what hooked me really to the marathon. I was like, this is fun. Like, I want to do another marathon, because I got through the whole thing just with that steady energy that Generation UCAN gives you. And I was like, wow, like, this is so fun. I'm like looking all around New York, and I would think I was in last place in the elite field, but I didn't even care. I was just like, I'm not stopping at the porta potty and I'm not throwing up. Like this, I'm running through the streets of New York. And so, that just made it so much fun for me to be able to see that you can train and have a fuel that works for you. And you can really show your ability because you're not getting sick during the race.
I mean, I think, yeah, like that element of putting in all that hard work and being so fit and then, having it derailed by, you know, what fuel you're putting in, it can be really, really frustrating. Now, I want to dig in a little bit to kind of how you utilize UCAN, because it's a different, like you yourself said it, when you started doing distance, you just kind of we're following the conventional wisdom because that's a lot of what's out there. It's like you got to take these gels and I'm sure there's a lot of people just like you who get into the marathon. They say, okay, this is what everybody's talking about. This is what you have to do. So with UCAN, one of the things you alluded to with the gels that was bugging you for your stomach was, the sugar, and so trying to eliminate that. So with UCAN, it's really a way to fuel without the sugar. So the carbohydrate in UCAN, it's a super starch, so it's very complex, long-lasting energy source that doesn't have sugar. And so with the UCAN, it's a powder, and you're using, some servings of the powder prior to your training, and then sometimes also using it during training as well, depending on the distance and the length of the run, right? So maybe walk us a little bit with like, how is the fueling protocol different with UCAN from what you were doing before? And do you find with UCAN, there's like more of an emphasis on the preloading than there has been like for you compared to what you were doing before?
Yeah, so I guess when I was using the gels before, I carried them with me, or I would put them on my bottle, or I would mix the gel with water in the bottle. So that was what people told me that they did. So that's, I was just kind of feeling my way through that, and people did different stuff. So once Dathan introduced me to the Generation UCAN, I started taking it 1 hour before my marathons and before my long runs, or bigger workouts that were longer, maybe 15 miles or more. So I take 2 scoops of the UCAN and shake it up, and I just start sipping it before the long run or before the marathon. And so that gets me to the start line. And did you want me to go through kind of the race?
So that'd be great. Yeah. So like either a race or even a long training run. So you're taking the 2 servings of UCAN prior, and then let's kind of first talk about training. A lot of people that are going to be listening to this who are training for Dallas, or perhaps training for another marathon like CIM or Houston coming up, or even the trials. If some of your competitors are listening to this, they're going to be in training right now. So tell us what you do from a fueling standpoint, say for a long run in training.
Yeah, so I usually will have someone on the bike with me that carries my UCAN in the bottle, and every 5K I practice. I just take 3 to 4 gulps every 3 to 4 miles. And the people that I coach that are marathoners that are getting ready for Dallas or another marathon, they will carry their little bottle with them, and they carry the UCAN. And I just tell them the same thing. You're not going to need it at 3 or 4 miles, but you need to take it in. You need to start taking in your fuel between 5K and 4 miles. And every 3 to 4 miles after that, through the whole marathon, until you get to, I would say, around 22 miles. You're at that point, you can finish out the race and you'll be fine. But does take practice. You can't just do it the day of the race, because it is a lot of fluid in your stomach. And so, you take the 2 scoops before the training run, and then during, like, let's say it's a 20-mile run, you might take it 3, 6, 9, 12, and just practice taking all that in. And that way, when you get to the race, you just do exactly the same thing, and you can see how your body is going to react to it, and then you can adjust accordingly. There's been times when maybe I took in too much fluid, and I was like, oh my gosh, I feel so full. So you just have to practice it.
And I think what's interesting is it's always cool to hear, how different people strategize and use it. I think one thing that's consistent with virtually everybody that's fueling with UCAN is that element of make sure you preload with it, because the idea with UCAN, it's not that quick energy, it's that steady and even, like you were talking about, feeling just steady throughout. So really taking 1 or 2 servings in, especially if you're doing a really long workout or the marathon before your run, that's really going to give you a really fantastic, solid, kind of consistent base of energy. Now, for somebody like Don, we were talking about this before we got on, like you're running 550 pace, when you're for some of your workouts or what you hit in Berlin. I mean, guys, that's fast. Let's just be serious. That's very, very fast. So for folks like Don or even, a lot of our other marathoners on the elite side, they are, like Don said, going to need to take it in, kind of frequently along the way, in addition to taking it before, just because at the pace they're going, I mean, their body's just burning things up really, really quickly. If you're somebody that's say in the 3.5 to 5 hour marathon pace, certainly take the UCAN before, but that's the beauty of practice and training. Like for you, you may not need to take it in as frequently. We've had marathoners at that pace take it in before and then kind of just hydrate for the first 2 hours and then start taking in some more at that point. But I think that really is why you practice and training, which is what Don's alluding to, because that's where you learn, what do I need and how do I make sure that I'm able to handle what I need. My stomach's able to handle it. I'm able to strategize with it. Don, one just other thing I wanted to pick up on that you mentioned is the amount of fluid you mix UCAN with. I think you said it's like you can mix it as thick or as thin as you'd like. It really doesn't impact the way you can digest because it's not a sugar-based fuel that's going to sit heavy in your stomach. So it's really gives you the opportunity to thin it out, thicken it up based on how much fluid you want to take and how frequently you're taking it. So that's really cool. That's great to hear kind of how you do it for the marathon and how you do it for the long workouts. What about outside of training? One of the things we've been hearing from a lot of our athletes, especially, for you guys that are putting in the big miles, I mean, even when you're not working out, the energy demands are just very high. Even somebody like yourself who's bouncing around from training to coaching, that need for steadiness is kind of always there, even when you're not running. So have you found ways that you've implemented UCAN in even when it's not training time?
Yeah, so I'm in the weight room twice a week with pretty intense lifting, and I really think it's important to stay strong as a runner. And so I also do my hard lifting days on my hard running days. So sometimes I'll put in a 20-mile workout and then I have this big lift afterwards. And you're so tired that I take the UCAN protein right after my run, and it carries me all the way through, to my lifting workout. I don't have to take anything, or if I wait a little bit, or if I have to go right into coaching, I'll eat one of the coffee UCAN bars, which are my favorite. I always have one of those in my car, so I can just eat that. And you're coaching 4-year-olds through high school kids. You got to be on. So I will take my UCAN bars with me, and I'll eat one of those, and that gets me through to my next meal. So I think definitely having those two are probably the big ones that I use. And then with just the heat in Texas, the electrolytes, the berry and the watermelon are great because you can carry the little packets with you and have those also in your car, just in your gym bag or whenever you need them. So I would say those are the products I use the most.
Awesome. You've talked a few times about the Texas heat, Don, and UCAN, we're really excited and proud to be the nutrition partner of the BMW Dallas Marathon. That's your local race now, being I always tempted to say your hometown race. Then I remind myself you didn't grow up in Dallas, but kind of feels like home for you now, right? Given how much you're doing in the community and everything that you're involved with over there. You're on the board of the Dallas Marathon. What's it like just being involved with the race? And you've run the race too for folks that are training for Dallas or getting ready to run Dallas for the first time. What can you just say about your experience having run it?
Yeah, it's a great event. They do an amazing job. The location, the weather is almost always great, and the course is a pretty fast course. And then, we get a lot of people that come out that that are just out there to have fun. We have bands on the course. I mean, it's just an all around awesome event, and they keep adding more elements to it every year. You know, this year we're putting on a Friday night mile the night before, so that's going to be awesome. I definitely will be out there with some of my high school and SpeedKids, and you know, we'll be out there in full force. They have the ultra now. I mean, there's just something for everyone. You know, whether you are, you know, a walk runner, you could do the 5K, you know, the day before, you know, so they just, you know, if you go on the website, you'll see there is literally something for everyone in your family to participate in on that weekend. So it's just a great weekend to be here.
You alluded to this, but for anybody that is running Dallas, we're really excited to be serving the UCAN, which Dawn pre-fuels with and uses along the way. We'll be serving that at a couple different stations at the start, and if you do want to have it along the way, you can fill up your bottle from us right at the start, and then we will have our bars on course as well. So for folks that want a drink option or a solid option, you can take UCAN and stay steady throughout. Don, we've got a couple minutes before we wrap this up. So I just want to add one or two more questions for you. Kind of your story, I think, connects with a lot of people. Like we've been at events with you. We've had you speak to crowds and heard the reaction from folks kind of listening to like what's your marathon journey. I guess what does that feel like for you? Like when you got into running, did you think that you would be getting to a point where people would be looking to you for inspiration or looking at what you've achieved as an inspiration? And what does it feel like to know that, you know, there's people out there, especially locally in your community, that feel that way?
Yeah, I just would say that I'm just a girl from Green Bay. You know, there's nothing special about me. I just work really hard. And, you know, I think if there's something that you really want to do and be passionate about and that you love and you want to be good at it, you just work at it every day. You know, you don't have to be, you know, anyone special. Like, I'm not any different than anyone else. I'm just a girl that grew up in Green Bay, and I realized I could run, and I worked really hard at it. And I think if you just apply that thinking to anything in your life, you know, you'll see that you'll have great success at it. And so, you know, I do know that I'm a role model. I feel that, with the kids that I coach, and that I take that seriously. You know, they look up to me. They look at how am I absorbing failures? How am I absorbing success? And how do I react to those things? And, you know, I think it's very important to be open about that and show your ups and downs and show the things that you go through, whether they, you know, whether you end up in the ER after a marathon or you end up with a fast time, you know, that doesn't define me. You know, running a 2:33 doesn't define who I am. Like it's really fun to be able to go and run fast and run a PR, but it's not me. It's not the total package that I am. And so I think, you know, with people that are, you know, wanting to train for a marathon or start their own business or whatever they want to do, you know, like find people that inspire you and find people that are positive. And like kind of wrapping back to what we said earlier is, you know, find that team of people around you that are positive and that support you and, you know, just help you along the way. So
It's a great message and really great words. I almost want to end there, but I haven't asked you yet about the trials, so I gotta just ask you one more. So your next big race, of course, not your next race, but your next marathon is the Olympic trials coming up in Atlanta in February of 2020. You've had the experience of competing in the marathon trials before in 2016, which you told us a little bit about. Yeah, what's it like? I mean, you're lining up against, you know, all the best marathoners that we see at all the big races. You've certainly lined up against them before because you've competed in a lot of the majors, but like you said before, you've had that competitive side of you since you've been young, growing up with brothers. Is it fun just competitively to be like, wow, I'm lining up against all these really, really incredible runners?
Yeah, I mean, it's an honor to be at the Olympic trials because everyone that's there has earned their spot and everyone has trained just as hard as you. And so to be lining up with all of those women at the same time, and it's special for, all of us to be there. So yeah, I'm really excited and about the opportunity and, to just go out there and give my best that day. And, especially now that I've kind of am learning the marathon and, I feel like I have even more to learn now that I have the fueling figured out and I've had some big experiences and some big races under my belt. So, I just feel like my belt is getting stronger. And so that'll be exciting to see what I can do when February gets here.
Well, I know we're super excited for you. UCAN will be there. We'll be cheering on for you. And, we've got 45 to 48, somewhere in that range right now. I have to check
Yeah.
after each race. I have to check again after Chicago this weekend. But we'll have a lot of athletes, both on the men and women's side, competing out there. Don, just really enjoyed this conversation. Really enjoyed hearing about your journey as a runner, your recent wins, how you've overcome tough experiences, how you fuel. So I encourage everybody who is checking this out to go back and give it another listen because Don's got a lot of words of wisdom. But Don, thanks so much. Really enjoyed
Fine.
having you on.
Thanks so much, Warren. Yeah, it's been great talking with you.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. We'll talk to you next time.